Also, Maurizio Catalan, Italian artist whom you might know, produced a new work, and sometimes artists are facing the organization with very many difficulties. Maurizio Catalan wanted there is a large group of Italian immigrants in Luxembourg, and he wanted to give them something back from their home country. So he said to Manifesta, I want to give to the Italian immigrants in Luxembourg a little bit of homeland in the form of a 300-year olive tree. So we had to dig for an olive tree in Sicily, put it on a plane, and put it into the museum. This gives a little bit the complexities of some of the works. Happily, it stayed in Luxembourg. It's now part of the collection of the museum. This is Diego Perrona, a rather traditional series of works, of photographs, which he made in Ljubljana itself. Tino Segal, quite a famous performance artist who made his first works in Manifesta 4. He is one of those artists who don't want to be interviewed, who don't want to be photographed. His work didn't exist. And Manifesta was very proud that we were one of the first biennales who were inviting Tino Segal. Another example of works which have a longer legacy in the region, because one of the ideas of Manifesta is to refurbish venues as exhibition spaces, but also to revitalize part of the city. In San Sebastian, the curators did two remarkable things. First, they didn't position the exhibition only in the center of San Sebastian, which is a beautiful bourgeois area, but they invited the artists to do research in the outskirts of San Sebastian, actually in those working areas where the steel industry left a large unemployment and a large group of people in desperate situation. And this is a former steelworkers house, and it was in part of the city which was completely abandoned. And Jan de Kok, a Belgian artist, created a beautiful structure, as you see, with this upper level, which went all the way 3 stories deep inside, and it communicated with the outside of the mountains. And it was like a denkmal, a monument to the workers, the unemployed steel workers in the Basque area. What was so interesting in this work is that it vitalized this area, because the moment this work was implemented in this building, these San Sebastian people used this area again for strolling in the evening, for using it again to use the beach, etc. At this moment, after Manifesta, this building has been used as a cultural center for the region. So sometimes we're also able to really implement a new function after Manifesta left. As I maybe started to tell you that part of Manifesta is like changing curatorial models and changing also the way biennials could work. Most of the biennials have a beginning and an end. The start of the exhibition and the closure of the exhibition. What we try to do, and this was sometimes you start an experiment which fails. But also this doesn't mean that the experiment is very valuable. In Manifesta 6 we said, we want to go to the Middle East, to those areas in the East Mediterranean which are very much influenced in history, European history, but also have a very close relationship to war, to very critical situations in ethnic conflicts. And Nicosia wanted to host Manifesta, and we did like investigation, what is needed in an area? Should we start an exhibition, or should we deal with new developments which have a longer impact also for the region? Since Nicosia is very close to Beirut, 15 minutes by plane, we decided to turn a biennial in an art school. Because there are no exhibition places in Cyprus, there are no academies in Cyprus. So the idea was, why should you have an exhibition if there's even not an art academy? Why should you have a biennale if there's no art school? So the idea was to start an art school which would survive Manifesta and could continue after Manifesta has left. Of course, as everybody knows, Nicosia is a divided city. The United Nations is in between. And when we came there in 2004, the hope was that the division would be challenged because Cyprus was becoming member of the EU. In this respect, also United Nations supported very much the founding of the school, which would be part 50% in Turkish Cypriot and 50% part in Greek Cypriot. Till 3 months before the opening, everything was very well organized, and even the Minister of Culture was very happy and went with us for first time to the Turkish part of the school. And together with many European countries, we were setting up the curriculum for the school. And there you find out that sometimes people do not understand very much what is the aim and the meaning of Manifesta, because when the president of Cyprus found out that Manifesta is not an ordinary exhibition, but really more playing the role of a partner, as a spokesperson in between the two parties, the North and the South, he was very much endangered of the school, and he closed the schools. Both the curators and myself were sent to court to destabilize the country of Cyprus, and we were positioned with a penalty of €1 million by destabilizing the country. Of course, we had to find the best lawyers. The school could not be opened, but most of it said a lot about what Europe in 2006 was about. And one of the artists, most of the participants for the school were very disillusioned because they wanted to work in the school, also the curators. And we, of course, were very disillusioned because it took us 2 years to overcome this punishment, to overcome this kind of conflict with the Nicosian government. Finally, we made an agreement not to talk about it in the political sense anymore. But Marta Rosler, an American artist, said very clearly, maybe this is one of the most successful manifestos because it was experimental, it failed, but it showed what Europe is still, in terms of conflictious situations and notions, be able to. That political freedom and freedom of speech and even the freedom of founding schools is not everywhere respected in Europe. So message here is Manifesta is an experiment and it can fail. And it is allowed to fail as long as the experiment is valuable. Here you see a part after the Manifesta 6, which failed in Nicosia, we went to Alto Adige. Alto Adige is part of the former Habsburg Empire, Südtirol. And Alto Adige and Trento, which is known as the Concilio of Trento, were two provinces who actually realized what Nicosia couldn't realize. They are very different in cultural background. One is Austrian, the other is Italian, but they created a management of diversity. They created a way in which they deal together. And for us it was very nice gesture politically that after a failed Manifesta in Nicosia we were able to work in this area, and we founded 4 different venues, 4 cities, Rovereto, Trento, Bolzano and Fortezza, in which by 3 curatorial teams the Biennale was set. One Polish curator was in this Manifesta, which was Adam Budak from Graz and Krakow, who was working in this, and this is maybe an interesting example again of a work. This is a former bus station which was refurbished. It's now in use by the Museum of Modern Art in Rovereto. And I use this as an example of what kind of works we use, because you see the doors. Inside is an exhibition of, I think, 20 European and international artists. And Daniel Knorr, a Romanian artist, was very much studying the history of the building, and the building was used by anarchist groups in Rovereto.